Well, today is August 26th. It's going to be a very interesting day for everybody. Now, I know I haven't been covering certain events, but there's those that came to my attention. We're going to be reviewing two events by DDT Pro Wrestling. We're going to have Wrestle Peter Pan, which is going to feature some great matches, and not to mention Konosuke Takeshita returns to be in a six-man tag team match, and of course the KOD Openweight Championship will be on the line, and a lot of fun things. But I don't know what took place exactly on the next day on DDT Free, but I'm getting excited for it. And of course, we cannot forget New Blood 4, the latest event that features wrestlers from Stardom, but also other places from other promotions who only have 2 to 3 years of experience. And of course, we cannot forget AEW Rampage, where we have, of course, one of the qualifying matches involving for the Trios Championship and many others. And who levels up on NXT Level Up? Well, we'll just have to find out. And of course, we got some news updates to tell what's been going on in the world of pro wrestling. So, get ready for another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to the Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, Gerard here. So, let's begin with one of the two DDT events that we have to talk about, which is Wrestle Peter Pan 2022. This took place on the 20th of this month of August. It opened up with a very interesting six-man tag match. We have the combination of the rookie Takeshi Masada, Yuki Shida, and Toi Kojima of 37 Kamina taking on Illusions and members of Burning, Yuya Kuruku and Rusuke Okada. Now, this is a very interesting matchup because, some of these guys are in factions, but they like to mix and match. But one thing it was really interesting is how Kokuda was in fact one of those newer wrestlers that was able to apply a pretty good, impressive submission on to Ishida. So it was like, wow, pretty good. So it was a very impressive match, but that's only just the beginning. Next match, we have a very, how do I say, delicate three-way trios match. Team number one, we got members of Disaster Box, Kazuki Irada and Totowashi teaming with Antonio Honda, taking on members of Super Sasango Machine, Yuki Naya and Yuji Ino. And the Fruitcakes, the Pheromones were also involved. There's this new guy, I don't know who he is. His name is Koju Takeda. He teams up with Dino and Ino. I had to say this is one of those matches where I hate to be. Now, if you guys know this, Irada likes to dance, but his dancing ways were erupted. His favorite glasses were broken thanks to pheromones, and of course it was Koju who picked up the win for his team. But thing is, much of this match was mostly dominated by the pheromones, and ever since they got this new member, it changed a lot of things. So I have been keeping too much what's been going on with the pheromones, but basically they are now the talk about team that many people want to say about. Next up, we've got a very interesting trios match. We have the members of Eruption, Hideki Okatani and Yukio Sakaguchi teaming up with the leader of Disaster Box, Adashima, to take on Kota Umedo, Kusuke Okuda, who I've seen in Dragon Gate, and of course, a former member of Disaster Box, Naomi Yoshimura. I thought this match was pretty interesting because, Hiroshima couldn't believe that what's his name? Yoshimura was left disaster box after he was one who brought him in. But it was a pretty good, impressive match. But it was, of course, a pinfall that was made by Hiroshima on Yoshimura. So it was a very interesting development to see that. But of course, I did saw some tensions with Okatani, with, of course, this guy with Kota. I don't know exactly what the tension is, but if I was Sakaguchi, I would keep your boy in check. Next match, we have a very interesting tag team trios match. We have Soma Takawa teaming with Shinjiro Takagi and this guy who I never heard name Shinichiro Konematsu taking on Makoto Oshii, who we haven't seen for quite some time, Akito, and the politician Osamu Nishimura. This match was a very interesting one because the way I see this guy, what's his name, Kawamatsu, he was wrestling in a suit. Now I know what you guys are thinking. Really? Yes, he was. I'm not joking. I'm not BSing. I wish I have, but I'm not. So basically, that's what happened. But it was, of course, Nishimura who picked up the win by applying a submission onto Kawamatsu. And of course, it was good. Now, Kawamatsu, he's not a wrestler. He's a rugby player. But I have to say he really was impressive the way he handled himself in the ring. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see him more in the ring. Now, our next match is a very interesting tag team mixed tag. First team, we have Asuka, also known as Veni, teaming up with Chris Brooks to take on Saki Akai and Jun Akiyama. Now, to be honest with you, before this match, Akiyama, he's a very different type of breed. He never teamed up with a woman, but Saki Akai is very impressive in certain aspects. I mean, I've seen her wrestle how she is. I mean, she could definitely hang with the boys, no doubt about that. But I kind of wondered, okay, what does Akiyama thinks? Does he thinks that women like Saki have what it takes to step into the big boys realm? And I think that's the key problem, the key thing about this match. It shows that Akiyama is a bit of the old school. I mean, look at what's been going on with New Japan and Stardom. It's the same thing. Will Akiyama see the same point of view to see how women's wrestling in Japan is? Well, I think he was really impressed because Saki put Asuka, in a somewhat version of a triangle lasso that forced her to tap out. And I think it shows, okay, she's really being serious about this. But what does Akiyama think? I haven't heard the comments yet, but I'll get back to everybody on that as soon as possible. Now, our next match, this is one of 3 championship matches. We have the DDT Extreme Championship in a hardcore match with Shuma Katsumata taking on I'm a bad, bad boy, Joey Janela. You can guess the plunder he brought in. He brought in bar tables, bicycles. Katsumata brought his Lego block baseball bat. You know, the whole shebang. But the obvious question is, can Katsumata keep up with a guy like Joey Janela? We know where he's from, where he wrestled, and I think that's the key part. But unfortunately, it did not end his well because he ended up on the wrong side of a table with the barbed wire. And of course, Janela picked up the victory. 1, 2, 3. It's done. Now, our next match is the DDT Universal Championship between Yuki Ueno from 37 Kamina taking on Masahiro Takanashi. Now, Ueno has had this title before, but he lost it a year ago in last year's Peter Pan show against Daisuke Sasaki. And then, of course, Sasaki lost the belt too, of course, to Takanashi. And now it's like Ueno is trying to reclaim a title that he lost. And the real question is, could he pull it off? I have to say, it was pretty impressive. Not to mention, Takanashi is a veteran in the game. It shows how Ueno is determined to get this title back. And he did. He proved it one way or the other, and he picked up a huge win to reclaim what was his. Now, it turns out that after he won the match, he has an opponent coming up on the 25th of, I think, September, or I'm not sure, in Corkin Hall, where he's going to be, of course, facing some guy for the title. So it's going to be interesting. Now, our next match, we have a very interesting 6-man tag match. We got the members of Damnation TA, Kanon and Daisuke Suzuki. But Suzuki didn't come alone. He brought in his mentor. You guys know him. Is that freaking sleazeball Dick Togo. It turns out that Dick Togo trains Suzuki. So it looks like there's a connection between this guy and, of course, the House of Torture. But their opponents is, of course, Yatsu Urano, Mao, and the return of Konosuke Takeshita. Now, keep in mind, Suzuki, he always proven himself that he is the bigger star than Takeshita. But the real question is, how much has Takeshita has grown since he left for 4 months in America? That's the key thing. So obviously, Takeshita has grown so much. He has been improving his wrestling craft ever since wrestling in the States. But it was, of course, Kanon who ended up on the wrong side of the jumping knee, giving Takeshita the win. So I thought it was pretty good, and I enjoyed it. And of course, Takeshita says that he is proud to represent DDT, and hopefully one day he gets to be the guy from DDT that wins the World Championship. That is his goal. Now, our main event, we have the KOD Openweight Championship. Now, this title, as you know, a few months back, Tetsuya Endo had this title, but he had to relinquish due to a concussion that he obtained at Cyber Fight back in June. And of course, there was a tournament to determine a brand new champion. The person who stepped up, who received it, is Kazusada Iguchi. Now, what I liked about this is Iguchi gave Tetsuya Endo an opportunity to reclaim a title that he knows 100% well he did not lose it. So it was like, okay, can Endo get this belt? I have to say this match was incredible. It showed determination. You look at Endo, who has won this title before. You got Iguchi, who struggled to get to the top. That's always been the story. You have two different people on this type of story. But unfortunately, there was a great moment near the end where the ref was counting, but Iguchi says, no, don't. I don't want to end this way. So he tells Endo, encourages him, get up, Endo. So he actually did like a somewhat of a sumo wrestling move that allowed him to win the match. And 1, 2, 3, he retained the title. But of course, he said that he respects him and that this match was really fun for him. And of course, there's that. However, the GM comes around and congratulates Iguchi about his win. But still, he asked him who would he likes to face on the next event on the 25th of September. And the person that was kind of shocking but surprising was Takeshita. Now, Takeshita, he's all for it. He said it himself. He's ready for this match, and I would love to see it. It's going to be awesome. You can bet on that. So, we'll see what happens then. So so right now, let's end it right here. Let's move on to the other DDT event, DDT Free. Okay, so we got the other DDT event, DDT Free August. Now, this one had multiple tag team matches in this one. I think we may have one singles match, but we'll see what took place. Let's talk about what took place. Our first match, we have Kazuki Irada teaming up with the members of 37 Kamina, Shuma Katsumata, and Mao to take on the Pheromones. Well, I feel sorry for Katsumata because time and time again he's been dealing with the Pheromones, tried to escape their grasp. But you know the Pheromones, they may be a bunch of fruitcakes, but they always find ways to win. And not to mention, everybody needs to get their faces out of their asses because that's the last thing they want. However, Irada suffered that consequence the entire time. But it was, of course, Koju who actually picked up the win for the Pheromones, which was very impressive. Now, I don't know much about this guy Koju, but he's very muscular. He kind of reminds me a bit of the younger versions of wrestlers who are muscular. But this guy is good. But I don't know how he was able to fit in with these guys. Now, our next match, we have the members of Eruption, consistent of Hideki Okatani, Yukio Sakaguchi, taking on Damnation's Kano and the Sukizazaki. Now, I have to admit that recently Eruption hasn't been the same since Iguchi made his departure to form his own unit. But I think what I like about this match is Hideki Okatani lost his composure when it comes to Kano. Now, Kano was pushing his buttons, but this allowed for Okatani to lose his composure, knock out the referee, disqualify himself. So it looks like he's looking for a fight, or he just doesn't like Kano. I don't know exactly what the beef was, but it ended up in a disqualification in favoritism to Damnation. I don't know if that's what Kano was looking for to piss him off. Well, we'll see about that. Next up, we got our possibly only singles match. Takeshi Masada taking on Tetsuya Endo. Now, I have to say, this is the rookie versus the veteran type. Endo, we know how good he is. He is a fantastic wrestler. Masada, this is where he has to get his feet wet, try to see what he can do with a guy like Endo. But however, Endo, he is a fantastic wrestler. I know he is still dealing with the fact that he couldn't win against Iguchi for the KOD Openweight title, but he still hasn't lost his edge yet. However, Masada ended up on the wrong side of a Boston Crab, thanks to Endo giving him the win. Next up, we got Chris Brooks, Yuki Naya, and Yuji Ino taking on the members of Burning. All members. Now, this is more of a payback match to Chris Brooks against Jun Akiyama. Remember, Chris Brooks teamed up with Asuka, while Jun Akiyama teamed up with Saki Akai. And of course, Saki Akai was the one who picked up the win. So I think this is more of a revenge match for Chris against Okatani. But however, I don't think he was able to get the pinfall or submission that he wanted against him. But however, he ended up getting a pin on Yuya's Kokura, which was a much simpler win for him. However, it did not end right there with him. Yuki Naya decided to sing happy birthday to him. I don't think he expected that out of him, because Chris Brooks, he's not an easy guy to have friends around. But I think he appreciates Yuki Naya bringing his spirit back up, and I think that's a good thing. I know Chris Brooks doesn't need friends, but it's good to have people that remember something important. Next up, we have a very interesting tag match. We have Akito and Joey Janela taking on Asuka and Yuki Ueno. This was a very interesting matchup because I did not anticipate a whole lot, because, as you know, Joey Janela, he's a bad boy. And it's unusual that he teams up with the Akito, because recently Joey Janela won the DDT Extreme title from Akito. So it was strange, but I have to say, okay, they did a little good teamwork. But however, I did not anticipate the teamwork with Asuka and Yuki Ueno, but it was, of course, Yuki Ueno who picked up the victory. Now he's building up momentum ever since he won back the DDT Universal title. Now, our main event, we have a very interesting our next match is another tag match. We got Masato Oshii and Naomi Yoshimura to take on Disaster Box, Totowashi, and Harashima. Now, we got another revenge match for Disaster Box. As you know, as Naomi Yoshimura left the group to join Iguchi, and of course that kind of tells us all in what's been going on in that particular fashion. But it was, of course, Harashima who picked up the win on Yoshimura to send him a great message. Now, our main event is 37 Kamina, Toi Kojima, and Takeshita taking on Yuki Ishida and Kazusada Iguchi. Now, Iguchi called out for his next big match against Takeshita. Now, this is a huge match in everybody's opinion. This is going to be great. But however, I think this match played an important role in Iguchi's journey. The reason I say this is because ever since Iguchi won the Openweight, the KOD Openweight Championship, he made the choice to leave Eruption to follow his own path. And of course, I did not anticipate where Naomi Yoshimura from Disaster Box followed him. But however, I think this match showed us another thing. Iguchi is now becoming a well-recognized, strong competitor. However, since he and a former partnership, I think this one showed, okay, he's forming his own unit as well. But it was Ishida who picked up the win by pinning Toy Kojima. And because of this win, Iguchi offered him a place in his unit. And I think that tells us that, he's willing to give this guy an opportunity no matter what. And I think we're all expecting what's going to happen between Iguchi and Takeshita. We'll just wait and see what takes place. So I believe that's it with the DDT stuff. I believe it's time for New Blood 4. Okay, New Blood 4, as you know, this is an event that Stardom created, as you know, for the much lesser experienced wrestlers between 2 to 3 years. Our opening match, we got Tomoka Inaba, who is from Just Tap Out, taking on Hina of Queen's Quest. Now, this is not the first time these two have come across each other. If you guys remember, in New Blood 2, Hina teamed up with her older sister Hanan, while she took on Tomoka Inaba and Ewai, and ended up in a draw. Now, however, I don't think Inaba has any interest in Ina, but Ina did put up a good interest. So I have to say, Inaba does have a much better experience in martial arts than Ina, because she does have a judo background, from my understanding. But it was the strike kick that sealed the deal, and then a pinfall, 1, 2, 3. Inaba won by that. Next up, we got a three-way: Ruka versus Chiko Shikawa from Gatoh Move versus Lady C. Now, as you know, Lady C and Chiko got along great because they're both teachers, and not to mention they got to deal with Ruka, who's a bad delinquent who causes the problem. However, in three ways, there's no friendships, but I know Lady C wanted to pick up the win, but however, she ended up in the wrong side of the freezer bomb by Ruka giving her the win. Next up, this is the one match that I think many fans have been looking forward to it. We got Momoka Anazono and Waka Tsukiyama, who just makes her return after 1 month being injured, to take on Rina and Ram Kaicho. Now, this match was set in the last New Blood. I thought this was a very fun match because I think it's more like Waka's having more fun. She has shown a bit of the aggressive side in certain aspects, but what I think it was very unique is that Waka will try to play Momoka's game, but however, Waka did try to play Ram Kaicho's game, so she brought her own ectoplasma, but misfired onto Momoka, and of course, it got onto her thanks to Ram Kaicho giving her the gory bomb by Rina to give the win. However, Ram Kaicho set out a promo, and of course, if you guys didn't see this or not, you see Momoka flipping off Ram Kaicho, and of course, Waka tried to block it. But however, Azumi comes out, asks for a match against Ram Kaicho for a false count anywhere match. Looks like she's becoming the master of it. If you guys remember, she was in a match in a false count anywhere in the last showcase. Now, it wouldn't be surprising if she shows up in the showcase for that. In the next one, we know it's coming up. So I'm looking forward to that. But however, Momoka introduced herself to Azumi. Now, if you guys remember, a few months back, Momoka's tag team partner from Ringo Momo, Meishiru, gave a fantastic high-speed match that people praised ever since then. So Momoka thought it would be a perfect opportunity for her to do the same thing. And of course, Azumi appreciated it out of her, knowing that this is something she wanted, but under the condition that she wants this match to take place in her home city of Osaka, Japan. Now, I know I talked about this before. She normally operates out of Osaka, and I know many of you who are Momoka Hanazono's fans would like her to explore more, but we'll see how that goes. Next up, we got Late Stars, members of Momo Kogo and Saya Ida, taking on this new girl I don't know of. Her name is Linda, teams up with Mai Sakurai, and these women show up with damn whips. They even try to choke out Rossi Ogawa. I'm like, oh, poor Rossi. Why is he there? But I don't know. But it was the But however, they took a lot of punishment with those whips, a lot, really bad. Even Saida tried to withstand it, but it wasn't enough. But frankly, Momokogo ended up on the wrong side of the Mai Pan roll, giving her the win. Next up, we got Aruka Umasaki teaming up with Starlight Kid is a match which is something Kid has been desiring. They take on Godzai, Amisori, and Mirai. The match was insane, really crazy, but however, Umasaki decided to cross the line by whacking Mirai with the chair, causing a disqualification, and then she walked out. However, the members of Odatai decided to give beatdown to all members, but out of the blue, here comes Tomoka Inaba to save the day. But of course, Kid did not like that this has nothing to do with her. But however, Tomoka Inaba had other plans. She asked Suri that she would like to join God's Eye, which was very interesting in my opinion. Now, I want to be fair with everyone, for all the DDT fans out there who been very critical recently with the downsides of DDM. I personally thought in my mind that Tomoka was going to join DDM because she has a similar career life as Micah. If you guys notice, if you Micah has won the future belt, Tomoka was in the verge of that, and I thought in the same way because they both were trained by, of course, Taka Michinoku, but I had to say I was wrong. But having a good choice with good God's Eye is probably the obvious. For those who don't know, Tomoka Inaba and Mirai know each other from their Kantai dojo days. They're both were trainees, so that's would make a lot more sense. I think she's more closer to Mirai, possibly. But of course, Suri did ask the other members, what did they think? So Ami Sori and Mirai are okay with the idea of having her join God's Eye. So now it appears that they expand to 4 members, which is good. So we'll see what they're gonna go with it. But the obvious question is now in the air by many fans on social media. They're saying, is this the same kind of case that we're seeing with Colors? Because here's the thing. Tomoka is currently the GTO Queen Champion. So is she going to be a freelancer? Like, will be part of the group, but not be there only on important matches? Well, we don't know yet. Now, to make this very explanation more clarify certain things that may come about, those who don't know, Taka Michinoku did help Micah to have a good deal to join Stardom when she made the transition there. I wouldn't be surprised if Taka does the same thing to Tomoka Inaba if that day arises. So we will wait and see when that happens. If that's the case, then Stardom will have a fantastic wrestler who will be doing great. Will be a perfect addition in the roster. Now our next match. Now originally this was not supposed to be a title match, but it was out of request from Hanan. The future of Stardom Championship was put on the line. Now those who don't remember back in New Blood 2, when Tomoka Inaba and Io took on Hanan and her sister Hina, they wanted a challenge for the future belt. However, we already seen Tomoka Inaba in that match on the 28th, I believe, of June. Last month, of course, which ended up in a draw. But however, AOI was the one person who also wanted the challenge. So I think Hina was being generous, trying to give her that opportunity that she deserves. But the reason that is because she wants to show that she is truly a fighting champion. And I thought the match was pretty great, but it was Hana with the bridge that gave her the win. 1, 2, 3, it was over. But however, that doesn't end there. During the post match, she did a little promo. But however, she called out her next challenger, a challenger that was already seems like it was a possibility, and that challenger was Godzai Amisori. So she wanted to be her challenger, but however, she wants this match to take place in the next New Blood event. So that kind of tells us, okay, she's willing to go the distance to do this. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but hopefully it does, because But some of you might question is, why is Ami Sodi really getting a title shot? Doesn't she be a more advanced? True, but she does have 2 to 3 years of experience. She does qualify for the match. Now, our next match, it's our main event. We have Tam Nakano taking on Miyu Amasaki. Now, if you follow the storyline here in this completely, Amasaki has challenged some of the top wrestlers that, like currently with the much better experience. First, it was Utami Ashita, who later asked Amasaki to join Queen's Quest. And then, of course, we had Julia in New Blood 3. And then finally, now Tam Nakano. Now, this is a very interesting matchup because I did not anticipate a whole lot how there was a moment where Tam really got her knee messed up thanks to Amasaki when she put her in some sort of a tight leg lock that kind of threw her off her game. But however, she did overturn it on various occasions. However, she did try to tell her how strong she, do the same thing like she did with Hikari. It did help her a little bit, but it did not until she ended up with the Tiger Suplex. 1, 2, 3, it was over. But what do I thought about this event? I think there was some great moments. I think Tomoka Inaba was one of the most interesting moments where she joins God's Eye. Waka Tsukiyama's big return after being injured. And I can't wait to see what New Blood 5 would be like. So we'll be waiting for that. So I think that's pretty much it. So let's move on with AEW Rampage. Okay, AEW Rampage opened up with the semifinals of the AEW World Trios Championship. As you know, we have Dark Order, Silver, Reynolds, and Tan taking on all members of the House of Black, Matthews, King, and Malachi. Now, this match, you probably would have assumed, Malachi Black was going to win this one because these guys are the most dangerous group ever. However, things would have gone their way if it wasn't for the Redeemer. Now, keep in mind, Miro hasn't forgotten what Malachi Black did to him back at the Forbidden Door. So this time he's taking the fight to them. Because of this distraction, it did give the Dark Order, especially Reynolds, to roll up Malachi Black in order to win. That means they advance. They take on, I believe, Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends. So that's going to be a much interesting development. But however, Miro decided to confront Malachi Black, but it became a 3-on-1 scenario. But out of the blue, out of some weird way, Sting and Darby Allin show up. Now, there was something that Excalibur made a good, valid point. Darby and Miro had faced each other before, but this was for the TNT title. So it became now the common enemy type of story. But you got to keep in mind, Darby Allin had dealt with Brody King already, and now he's willing to help out Miro for this. And not to mention, Sting was missed by Malachi Black. So I think that says it all. Now, a week ago, we did see Hook retained his title against Zack Klein, but all of a sudden, the two loudmouths of the Jericho Appreciation Society, Menard and Parker, decided to challenge him for the title. However, Hook said he saw the video. He said he doesn't care. Now, Menard shows up along with Parker, thinking that he's scared. I'm like, ugh. I hate to say this. These guys, they talk too much. But one thing I know for sure. Hook, he's laid back. He's a cold-hearted devil. That is the thing that Parker doesn't understand. Imagine they both lose to Hook. How are they going to explain that? They think they're so tough, but when it comes to Hook, he's dangerous. So we'll see what happens then. Now, the TNT title was put on the line. Ryan Meneth taking on the hometown hero, Wardlow. But of course, Sabin shows up along with Dutt, Sanjay Dutt, Lethal, and Singh. Apparently, the match ended quickly when, of course, we saw the Symphony Bomb. Poor Meneth, but he didn't stand a chance in my opinion. Now, the next match we have Powerhouse Hobb versus a guy named Ashton Day. He finished him off quickly. It was like a walk in the park. But however, in post-match, we see QT Marshall and the Factory making sure that Ricky Starks does not make it to All Out. So he gave his word to Powerhouse Hobbs. But how he's going to make sure that Starks does not make it all the way to All Out. But if I was Starks, I would definitely make some new friends who you know you're going to have their back. Now, Jade Cargill, as you know, she is getting fed up with this whole thing with Athena, so she decided to call her out. Athena attacked her, so it looks like this match will take place in All Out. Next up, we have a mixed tag match. Ty Mello and her husband, Sammy Guevara, taking on Ortiz and Rubito. But I knew in this match it's going to fall favor to them because the fact is Parker's outside, and I knew Anna Jay was going to crawl her head out of somewhere, allowing them. But it was like a version of the Cloud Cutter by Sammy that give Ortiz the win. So basically, they keep talking trash, but we'll see what happens then. Now, our main event is the ROH World Championship between Dustin Rhodes along with Arn and Brock Anderson taking on Claudio Castagnoli. I think this match played a very important story where, of course, these were two men who we know from their history that they were denied an opportunity of the World Championship, which is a fantastic story to tell. And now you look at Castagnoli, who finally says, I finally did it. And I think that tells us all, because the thing is, when we all knew Castagnoli when he was in WWE, we all said to ourselves, he should be in the hunt for that WWE title or the Universal title. But no, somebody didn't think he was good enough for it. But now he's the Ring of Honor World Champion. So now we can tell them, well, this is what you miss out. But as for Dustin, he's also in that same type of predicament. But I have to say, Dustin did really pull off the best natural that he is. Everything that he has stood for and everything that he fought for, he put it all on the line. But unfortunately, it did not end well for him. Castagnoli was able to pick up the win. 1, 2, 3, it was over. So I know for a fact Dustin will not give up, but he will become world champion. But we just don't know when will that happen. I would love to see him become world champion, and I'm sure many of you did. So I think that's it with AEW. I believe it's time for NXT Level Up. Okay, who levels up on NXT Level Up? Our first match, we have Malik Blade and Edris and Nofe. Now, these guys have been a very impressive tag team since we've been from day one since they formed. Now they are putting themselves into the test against two big individuals. We're talking about Bronco Lima and Lucian Price. Now, this was one of those matches, okay, do they have the tools in order to bring two big individuals out? That is the common question. But what I think it was, they pull off every stop possibly to try to pull off the biggest win ever. So they were able to apply the climax onto Lucian Price, giving them the W. And I think this match will show people to open their eyes, says, yes, these guys should be entitled for a tag team a championship run. And I think that's something that many fans will definitely want to talk about. And I know Level Up, one of the guys, Level Up, the wrestling school here in San Diego, are very proud of Inoue because they talk highly of him. Now, we do get an interview with Nathan Frazier. He talks about his main event against Ikemenjiro. So he talks about the guy who wanted to be a wrestler, but first he was something else, that sort of thing. But we'll see what happens then. Our next match, we haven't seen her for quite some time. Amari Miller taking on Kiana James. Now, Kiana James was trying to prove that smarts are far more superior of everything. I have to say, Amari Miller did give her a run for her money. And I think it tells us, Amari Miller is improving a little bit more than she should be, because I've seen her, how she has grown. But when it comes to Kiana James, it just proves that she's still smarter than anybody. But I think she figured out ways to take out Amari Miller by dislocating her, by giving her excruciating pain. I saw that she was holding on to her Amari Miller's abdomen was like, I don't know if that was, how to call it, part of the story, or she really was hurt. I don't know, but that kind of tells us what it means. But of course, Kiana James did pick up the win, telling the world that smarts are the true far superior of what pro wrestling is. Now, our main event, we got Ikemen Jiro taking on Nathan Frazier. As you know, this was a very interesting matchup. But however, I would say I'm a fan of these two men, but it was, of course, Nathan Frazier with the Phoenix Splash that gave him the win. I think it was a pretty good one, and I enjoyed it. So that's who levels up on this week, but we'll find out who levels up next week. So I think that's pretty much it. It's time for news updates. Okay, so here are some news updates going on. Now, I mentioned time and time again about the West Coast Pro. Now, those who are in the Bay Area, you guys may be in for a treat if you guys have been aware or not. There's going to be a very interesting meet and greet for the October 8th event, Ride the Lightning. And for all you New Japan fans out there, you may, if you guys are from the same area, or you plan, or you should go. The reason is, it was announced that Katsuyori Shibata will be doing a meet and greet at the West Coast Pro on that particular day, on October 8th. So if you guys are from the general area, you guys know. If you guys are not, but if you want to plan, now you know where he's going to be. Because I'm sure many people will love to meet Katsuyori Shibata. Now, as you know, recently, last week, we saw Johnny Gargano made his debut. Now, this report came in from the Wrestling Observer. Now, ever since we knew Johnny Gargano, since he left WWE, there was the indication he could be on his way to AEW. Now, personally, I felt that there was no way from the moment he left, he was immediately going to go, due to the fact that his wife, Candice LeRae, was due any time for their son before he was born. I assume was going to stay home on maternity leave. But however, he did explain that he was considering going to AEW because it was an alternative, but his deal was taking too long. However, but when news broke out about Vince's exit, he knew from the very moment that he wanted to go back to WWE. Now, I know some of you WWE lawyers are probably laughing your asses off because you're thinking, ha ha ha, that's one for us, AEW. Guys, listen. It was a business move out of Johnny Gargano's part, okay? He knew that there was no way he could that his career with WWE was not going to go any well as long as Vince was in charge. That was the problem. But he saw the opportunity, thinking now that he's gone, it would make him go back. That's the reason. He knew when Vince is gone, he goes back. That's how it works. It was a business move. So, we'll leave it as that. Now, Gatoh Move put out an interesting tweet that I did not anticipate. It was revealed for their upcoming event for next month on the 15th of September for Phoenix Rises. Our very first ever AEW Women's Champion, Riho, will be making her return. Now, some of you may ask, didn't she show up in Choco Pro 2 years ago? That was different. She was never part of that. But she was invited to go part of Choco Pro. But in Gatoh Move, that's a different story. She hasn't wrestled there in 3 years since she made the transition to move to AEW. That's the whole thing. So I'm excited for her to make her return. However, it's still unclear who will be her opponent. But sooner, before we get to that day, hopefully we do get that announcement. Now, our last update, as you know, I've been talking about the GCW updates. As for their Japan events that are taking place, they announced Schlank will also be going there. I'm so excited for Schlank because he's going to murder everyone down there. He's going to be a rabid beast down there. Trust me. I wonder who he will be facing. But we'll see. So I'm excited for that. So I think that's pretty much it with all the news updates. I believe it's time for, let's call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode coming up. As you know, we got the latest Choco Pro event that came out, and hopefully there'll be other things I will be bringing upon. I believe we'll continue more with the High Alert in New Japan Strong. We'll see how it is. So I'm just gonna wing it for the next episode. It may not be in the same order because I normally what I do is I review every event in the same order. I probably will right now just do mixed match and tell the date what date it happened. So we'll see about that. But for now, I'll see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. Mwah. And have a nice day.